There are many classic anime from the 90s. Cowboy Bebop, Princess Mononoke, Evangelion. And that's just the original stuff. If we're talking manga adaptations, then there's the big ones like Dragon Ball Z, Slam Dunk, A Brief History of Poland, and a bunch of other ones too. These manga adaptations tend to fall into one of three buckets. First, we have an anime that the manga author absolutely loved. You can think of Trigun. Second, we have an anime that the manga author had a lot of issues with, but still gave their seal of approval nevertheless. Rurouni Kenshin comes to mind. And lastly, we have an anime that upset the manga author so much that they shut it down completely. That anime is Kare Kano. Full name, Karashi Kanajo no Jijao. I probably said that wrong. Gomenasai, I've been watching too many dubs lately. The English title is His and Her Circumstances, but I'm just gonna call it what most people call it. Kare Kano is a shoujo rom-com manga written by Masami Suda in 1995, which was turned into an anime a few years later and directed by one of the most polarizing people of the period, Hideaki Anno. The basic story is pretty simple. Yukino Miyazawa is a top-tier girl boss who gatekeeps her true personality by gaslighting the world. On the surface, she's a model student, pretty and perfect, but in reality, she's the queen of vanity, who only does what she does because she very much enjoys the praise. But one day, people start praising someone else, the male class rep, and the only other person who's more perfect than her, Sonichu Arma 3. She views him as her rival and forces herself to reclaim her spot at the top after midterms. But instead of reciprocating her choice feelings of animosity, Arima congratulates her and reveals he's got a little crush on her too. The most perfect boy in school, the one who turns down all the other girls, has just revealed his heart to Yukino, and she shoots that sucker down like it was nothing. But Arima takes it like a champ, and the very next day, he comes over to Yukino's house to give her a CD she said that she was interested in. And that's when he accidentally discovers his true love's true nature. What follows is an unlikely romance between two people who both have their secrets. Kanekaro is an amazing romance anime with plenty of interpersonal introspection, tons of laugh-out-loud humor, and a unique art direction and soundtrack. Or it's a pretentious pile of absolute trash. If you like still frames and manga panels and popsicle sticks, then you're gonna love this thing. But if you prefer your anime to be a little bit more, animated, then you might have a tough time watching this one. Kare Kano is all over the place with the presentation. Sometimes you'll get highly animated comedic sequences, and other times, it's a puppet show. Couple that with all the recaps at the start of most episodes, along with 2 whole episodes that are just recaps, and you'll be thinking, what were they thinking? Did they run out of budget or something? No, not really. You see this budget thing come up a lot with a lot of Gainax anime. I mean, there are still people to this day that believe that the last 2 episodes of Evangelion look like that because they ran out of money, despite Gainax already setting the record straight years ago. And it's the same situation here. Gainax was not hurting for cash. They had just made one of the most popular original anime series out there. Do you realize how much Eva merchandise there is? They had the money. They just didn't have the people. Many of them had already left after Evangelion to form Studio Gonzo. I mentioned this in my last Exile retrospective. Yeah, I'm shamelessly plugging my own video. This should not surprise you. I've long since sold out. Speaking of, nah, I'm just messing with you. This lack of animators is why Gainax collaborated with JC Staff. Now I hear you asking, so if they had plenty of budget, then why does the show look like this? Well, how about I answer that by asking you a question. What else does this show have in common with Evangelion? Bingo. Hideaki Anno is someone who honestly needs no introduction. He's a director who always leaves his mark, for better or worse. When you're watching something made by Anno, you know it's made by Anno. Now that doesn't necessarily mean he makes amazing stuff. I mean, you can just as easily tell when something's made by Zack Snyder or J.J. Abrams. All it really means is that he's got a certain sense of style. He loves to cut quickly and reuse key animation. He'll play around with color and include tons of text. He'll throw up a still image for a solid minute while classical music plays in the background. For Anno, the most important thing is the visuals, the angles, and the imagery. It doesn't matter if the characters look stiff, they don't even need to be animated. The real entertainment value is all in the editing and the framing. This is the ethos that defines most of his shows, but especially the Kare Kano anime. Even more than Evangelion, this show does some crazy stuff. Sure, there's less nightmare fuel, but what you get instead is an entire episode that looks like this. But now that's an extreme example of Anno's principles at play. For the most part, what you see is what you see in most of his other shows. And that includes his fascination with what's going on inside your head. He's able to convey so much emotion and information just by how he chooses to set the scene. From the color to the music to even the type of media employed. When it's goofy and cute, the characters are cartoonish, but when it's serious, the colors get darker, and he whips out some art house imagery that perfectly captures feelings of isolation, self-hatred, or yearning. It's surreal, yet it still hits close to home, even for someone like me who missed out on teen romance. The anime was pretty good though. From the outside looking in, it might seem odd that Anno would go from making a psychological mecha to a slice-of-life romantic comedy, but the more you watch the show, the more you understand why he wanted to work on this anime. He was enamored with the main theme, these two people who are going through the most formative years of their lives trying to figure out who they are, not just to each other, but to themselves as well. Why do we do what we do? Are we looking for praise, or are we afraid of being someone terrible? Anno loves this kind of stuff, which is why he put his heart and soul into this anime. He wanted to make this thing into something unforgettable. And that's what killed the show. You see, not everybody was on board with Anno's particular brand of autism, the most obvious person being Suda, but there was another person who wasn't too fond of Anno's shenanigans. And by person, I mean company. TV Tokyo. The fan reception to Ava's TV finale has been exaggerated quite a bit, but it's true that there were many fans who felt betrayed by Anno. And they made their feelings known to him and to TV Tokyo, who were already having to deal with Anno's constant management shortcomings. Production under Anno was a mess. Gainax barely had any staff, so most of the animation was outsourced. And Anno would frequently decide to rewrite things at the 11th hour, causing further production hangups. This is one of the reasons why the final episodes of Ava look the way that they do. But the other reason these episodes look like this is because Anno wanted them to look like this. He's an artsy guy. Have you seen his first live action film? It's insane. You think anime has some weird camera angles? Clearly, you have not seen Love and Pop. But besides being artsy, Anno also loves to push the envelope. He hates censorship. So when TV Tokyo told him he couldn't kill any kids in Evangelion, he maimed one to show the creator of Gundam how it's done, and made the other an angel so he could take him out in a grisly fashion. And that caused the network to be highly untrusting of Anno going forward. And then something terrible happened in 1997, an incident most of you are probably aware of. It's one of the most infamous incidents in anime history, and surprisingly, it had nothing to do with Anno. It was Pokemon, the Porygon episode, an episode which contained a sequence that sent over 600 children to the hospital due to epileptic seizures. New TV guidelines were issued, and all animated projects on the network had to follow each rule without exception. And this really pissed off Anno as he continued his work on Kare Kano, because he felt that some of these rules barred him from making Scorsese-level cinema as he had in the past. That was strike number one. Strike number two happened when Anno once again caused a major production hiccup around halfway through the series, resulting in back-to-back recap episodes and the addition of Hiroki Sato as a co-director. And I say addition because Anno didn't walk away entirely from Kare Kano as many people claim. He did for that first recap episode, but he came back to see the series through to the end. He just changed his name in the credits to signal that these new episodes would be a little different. But you don't need to read the credits to see that they're different, especially when it comes to those last three episodes. One is another recap, the other is an anime-only episode, and the last one is mostly scans of the manga with some audio descriptions. It's also the last episode, but certainly no finale. It's the halfway point of an arc from the manga that the anime simply ends abruptly. And I do mean abruptly. They don't even change the to be continued, they just slapped a the end right after it. So what happened? Well, Strike 3 happened. But before we get to that, this video is sponsored by Sakura and Tokyo Treat. I'm not kidding this time, I need the money. But I'll tell you what I don't need anymore. I don't need to go to the store to get some snacks. Now I have them sent straight to my door, and the best part is, they're from the best part of the world, Place Japan. Sakurako is a monthly Japanese artisan snack box that supports local Japanese snack makers, in case you were wondering. Each month you get a box filled with 20 traditional, authentic, artisan Japanese snacks, along with some Japanese teas and even some special Japanese tableware. I got a cup this time. Perfect for tea or other liquids, I assume. Take note of the elegant Sakurako box. It'll be a little different depending on the monthly theme. This box is for next month and the theme is Colors of Kyoto. Kyoto, as you may know, is a city of immense historical significance. There's a bunch of cool cultural stuff like ancient temples and Kyoto animation. Go figure. Anyway, some of the snacks this go around include Kyoto Arare, fried ginkgo nuts, matcha pudding, Niki Yasuhasi, soba boru to? Nah, it's just boru. It's pretty good though. I mean, all of these things are, but by far my favorite item was the Kitsune Senbei. I'm mostly saying that because, I mean, come on, look at it, man. Sly little guy. Can't fool me though, because I know all about you thanks to the highly informative lore dump found within the booklet, which comes with the box. Side note, there is a lot of stuff packed into this little booklet. You have the standard descriptions of all the various food items, as well as some cultural insights on specific regions of Japan. Want to know how some of these snacks are made? There you go. Want to know how some of these clothes are made? Here you are. But back to the Kitsune. There is a duality to these creatures, a balance between wisdom and trickery, a balance between aesthetic appeal and tasty taste. Both the matcha cream roll cookie and the matcha chocolate crunch were welcome additions to my stomach. And as always, there's plenty of other stuff, but I'll let you discover them when you get your own box, so you better get one. I mean it. Do you not like Japanese snacks, or what? Are you too good for Japanese culture? Depart from me, I never knew you. You can sign up for a subscription by clicking the link in the description and using my code. This does help the channel out, and I wouldn't have taken the sponsorship if I didn't actually like these snack boxes. And now back to the video. Suda wasn't happy with how her manga was being handled. She felt like Anno had taken far too many creative liberties with her story and ruined basically everything. It was too extreme, too artsy, and most of all, too silly. Kare Kano was supposed to be a romantic comedy, sure, but Anno and his team weren't putting enough emphasis on the romantic part. It didn't help that Anno was planning to take the story in a different direction from the manga, which was still ongoing at the time, and increasingly becoming more and more serious in tone. It seemed highly likely that Anno would make his own ending for the Kare Kano anime. And considering how his last anime ended, TV Tokyo got a little worried. So the anime ended. Inconclusively and unceremoniously, and a possible continuation in the future was ruled out almost immediately. Now I'll be honest here, I've been rattling off some behind-the-scenes stuff very matter-of-factly, but the truth is, we don't have a solid answer for why Kare Kano got cancelled. We know it had production issues and that Suda didn't like the anime, but beyond that, the info we have is mostly just secondhand gossip and hearsay. Rumors started on early internet forums based on circumstantial evidence, like the drop-off in quality towards the end of the series, or the fact that Anno would never again direct a TV anime. Alright, I've kind of been dancing around this point, but I should probably make it crystal clear. I like Hideaki Anno. I think the stuff he makes is pretty cool. Now, I get why people hate him. Believe me, I get it. And I'm not about to run defense for the guy either. He can get in the robot and do that himself. I just want to make it clear that I am a fan, and I largely agree with his fixation on stills and angles and whatnot. I find his style so captivating. So when I say that I love the way Kare Kano looks, I need you to understand I'm talking about all of the things people complain about. I love the still frames. I love the manga panels. I love episode 19. I wouldn't mind a whole series that looks like this. Some might call these visuals cheap, but me, I call them financially distinct. To me, this anime is beautiful, but it's definitely not for everyone. Least of all the Baka mangaka. Now, I got a bone to pick with this chick. I mean, well, not really. She's the author. I'm not gonna sit here and say that she was wrong for not liking what somebody else did with her story. But I did decide to read her story to try to understand why she so disapproved of the anime, and also to see where the story ended up going. And I gotta be honest, I don't really like the manga. Yeah, I know. The adult man doesn't like the shoujo manga. Scandalous. Although, hey, I did like Escaflowne, and I do like 12 Kingdoms as well, so there's definitely some shoujo stuff I like. That or I just like isekai. Liar! Only the first third of the manga gets covered in the anime, and if you ask me, It was the best third of the manga, because things get pretty crazy in the manga. If you care about spoilers for a manga that ended 2 decades ago, then skip ahead because I want to mention a few things. First, we have some, shall we say, aggressive romance between Arima and Yukino. It's a little spicy, and I'm not sure if it's handled all that correctly. And then there's the part where Arima's abusive parents come back into the picture after ditching him for over a decade. His interactions with his mom are interesting. And his dad is some world-famous jazz musician who was introduced by pointing a gun at his son. He shoots his ex-wife, by the way. Twice, in fact, but Arima stops him from killing her. Do you see the problem here? Kare Kano started out as a simple high school romance story that always stayed grounded in reality despite its quirks. Sure, there was always drama even from the start, but it was relatable and honest. This is a soap opera. Melodrama consumes the manga. It's hard to take it seriously after a certain point. And it's not just that it loses sight of what it used to be, it also loses sight of its main characters. There are whole stretches of the manga where Yukino and Arima simply stop showing up because we really need to spend more time on the relationships budding between less interesting characters. Now don't get me wrong, I like Tsubasa and Kazuma in the anime. I appreciated that we got to see a normal, wholesome Chungus step-sibling relationship for once. These two people from incomplete families who both suffered from the same kind of loneliness finally found someone they could relate to and talk with. It was nice. But the manga makes it romantic. And look, I'm not complaining about this because I'm some prude or anything like that, okay? I'm a Monogatari fan. I just think the relationship becomes so much less interesting once it becomes romantic, that's all. But I will be a prude about another relationship in Kare Kano. It's mentioned in the anime that Yukino's friend Maho is dating an older gentleman, and in the manga, you see it, and in case you forgot, she's a high schooler, and he's a 28-year-old Minecraft YouTuber, dentist. Now, I don't want to countersignal Canon Law 1083, but Bishop Nihon, I don't think you should grant a dispensation in this case, or in the next one either, that being Asaba and Yukino's daughter. Okay, I don't know if this is a thing that's just a part of female romance stories, but I know Twilight also has the same thing, so I gotta ask, ladies, what's going on? What are we doing here? What is your relationship like with your father? One thing I can't wrap my head around is this quote given by one of the co-founders of Gainax when asked about why Kare Kano got canned. And in his words, Kare Kano was supposed to be a romantic comedy, and we wanted to emphasize the comedy and not the romance. The author wanted to emphasize them both, and that is where the conflict came to be. The reason I don't get this quote is because I never felt like the romance wasn't emphasized enough in the anime. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that the romance was handled wonderfully. I genuinely got the sense that these characters truly liked each other. It felt real. And sure, there's plenty of comedy in this anime, but it's never to the detriment of the drama, nor does it ever undercut a sensual scene. All it ever does is exaggerate the mundane and typical over-the-top anime fashion. To me, this quote only makes sense if you just apply it to the last episodes. Those ones are more goofy and have less romance, but at that point the anime had caught up to the manga. They needed to buy some time, hence another recap and an anime original episode. But maybe you're thinking that Suda just didn't like all the artsy stuff. I mean, plenty of people disliked it. It's not that hard to imagine she was one of them. But I don't think that's the case. The manga is pretty artsy as well. I mean, at one point later on in the series, there's even a brief recap of the story with puppets. Sound familiar? This might just be my little schizo thread, but I kind of think Suda's main problem with the anime was that she wasn't comfortable with Ano coming up with his own definitive ending. The guy is quite infamous for his endings, and Suda was still sorting out where she wanted to take things before making her own eventual ending. This would explain why the Kare Kano anime doesn't have an anime-only ending, even though it got the 26-episode treatment, and they knew going into it that the manga wouldn't be finished anytime soon. And I can't stop thinking about how odd those last 3 episodes are. The recap episode isn't your typical clip show, at least not for the first half. There's original animation put into it, and it almost feels like a trailer or cut up bits of future episodes slapped together into a highlight reel. Then you have a filler episode with a different, less detailed style. Take note of the eyes. Finally, there's the finale, which relies on scans of manga panels way more than any other episode to that point. These 3 episodes feel like a backup plan, like the team had gotten pretty far on 3 other episodes that had to be scrapped. Again, I have no evidence for any of this, not even a revelation from a dream. It's just a feeling. I mean, you could just as easily conclude that the anime ending the way that it did happened because of Anno's poor time management skills, which caused the show to have multiple unplanned recap episodes instead of the usual single recap episode. If things had gone according to plan and they had this extra time, they more than likely could have ended things after finishing the play. It's a shame it didn't turn out like that. Or maybe not. Kare Kano is often described as an unfinished masterpiece, but when the rest of the story isn't as good as what came before, then would you really prefer it finished? Who knows, maybe they'll make a remake and follow the manga more closely. Then you'll get your answer, I guess. But I don't know if we really need a remake right now. I mean, we just had Love is War, which is basically a modern version of Kane Karo. I don't think it's as good, but that shouldn't surprise you. Personally, I'm more interested in seeing the ending that Anno allegedly had cooking, but that's probably lost to time if it even ever existed at all. Regardless, I don't have many regrets concerning this anime. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it's one of those shows that I can just tell is gonna stay with me for a good long while. Had it had a cleaner production and a less out there director, it probably would have gotten a satisfying ending and the seal of approval from its original author. But then, it wouldn't be the show that I love so much. Tell me what you thought of Kare Kano. Did you prefer the anime or the manga? Or do you like them both but for different reasons? That's kind of a cop-out answer, but I'm also guilty of doing that from time to time. Anyway, until next time, Ave Maria, Deus Vult, and a big thank you to all the cultured.